like to invite you to join me on a journey, a short visual meditation practice if you like. Imagine you are walking along a narrow beach path. The sea is down to your right, and there are rolling sand dunes to your left, with long sand grasses as far as the eye can see. As you are walking along this well-trodden path, you notice under your feet you can feel the soft sand and occasionally the sandgrass, spiky at times, between your toes. You walk carefully, taking in all that you can see. It is a warm day with a light breeze. You feel the sun on your skin and you breathe in the fresh air. You listen and you can hear seagulls and small birds and the sound of the wind and the sea. You feel a sense of peace that becomes stronger with every breath you take. Your focus is being drawn to the beauty of this place. And as you walk, you notice that your worries and thoughts drift away, allowing you to be fully present with where you are, to connect with your surroundings. You are drawn to watch the movement of the sea below you, and you can see the waves crashing gently along the shore. You get a sense of the power of the energy beneath each wave, the rhythm of the waves drawing in and out, the ebb and flow of the tide. The breeze drops and you notice the sand under your feet now has become softer and deep. You make your way towards the place to settle for a few moments and find a comfortable place to sit. You look out onto the horizon across the water, taking in the colours, the movement and the energy. Perhaps choosing to close your eyes for a moment, allowing yourself to feel into your body as you breathe deeply, sensing into the movement that breathing creates. Feel your belly expand and your chest expand, and stretch out your arms as you breathe in, increasing your connection with the space around you. Stretch up to the sky to feel the vast space above you. For a moment, see if you can keep your focus inwards, noticing how you are feeling in this exact moment, letting go of any expectations of how you should feel, and simply be with whatever comes up without judgment. Bring your attention and your awareness to what is going on right now, tuning in with an openness, a curiosity, and a willingness to be present. This short awareness practice was about shifting our focus from our imagined surroundings to tuning inwards, to sensing into the body and noticing how we are feeling and what we are thinking at the present time. This has set the tone for this talk, which is about enhancing our experience of being in nature by learning ways to be present and more aware. I'm a clinical psychologist and a yoga teacher, and I'm learning to draw on my different trainings so that I can make the most of my time outside in nature and be more aware of my connection with my environment. I'm interested in what difference having a connection with nature makes. As a psychologist, I'm motivated to understand how we can improve our sense of well-being. What makes us happy, motivated? What makes us satisfied? Spending time in nature is essential to my happiness. Living in Cornwall, I am lucky to say that I have had an abundance of nature on my doorstep. 2 coastlines to explore, hundreds of beaches. And growing up here, I've become drawn to being outside. There is a pull in me to be by the sea. And I've come to rely on my time outside as a way of bringing balance to my well-being, levelling out the heaviness and the thinking aspect of my work. And I use it as a way of dealing with stress. There is a growing research body to show that being outside in nature has a measurable impact on reducing stress and enables us to feel calmer and content. There are studies showing that even looking out at nature, at a group of trees from a window in a hospital room, can speed up patient recovery time. Mental health services are developing surfing as therapy. They have found that there is therapeutic benefit to being in the sea, immersed in nature. And I know this personally from how I feel when I'm outside. I feel a physical and mental health benefit. As an adult, I've become aware that although I spend as much time outside as possible seeking headspace, my mind is generally more occupied, less present, more headful with work, life and thoughts, and it is harder to shift from focusing on my thoughts to enjoying my surroundings. Maybe you can relate. Have you ever noticed being on a walk in a place that is known for its beauty, and before you realise it, you look up and you've walked for a good 10 or 20 minutes without noticing the wildlife, the sounds, the colours, as you've been so caught up in thinking? I notice this frequently. I'm prone to overthinking. I have an analytic mind, which in some ways has advantages, and it means I'm driven to better understand things. And this is probably what led me to choose a career in psychology, where finding meaning and finding out what leads to behaviour change is at the heart of what I do. I've worked full-time for the NHS for 16 years, and I've trained in several therapeutic approaches to find ways to help people make sense of experience, to provide a framework for understanding psychological distress, so to encourage new perspectives and ideas to emerge, so people can find ways out when they have become stuck. And in my work, I've learned about the way the brain deals with stress and how our whole physiology alters. We know that our brain cannot process all of the information we are exposed to from our senses, our conversations, reading, social media, the news. We are overloaded, and so the brain relies on certain cognitive heuristics or shortcuts designed to enable us to be more efficient with the vast amount of information. This is the brain's way of condensing and prioritising. Our brain is selective about what it attends to. This is an efficiency strategy. It's automatic and it's very clever. However, it means that we are prone to having a skewed perspective and missing out on some information. We have an inbuilt negative bias. We are naturally drawn to information that may be indicating a threat. This is a biological safety mechanism. However, we know that this impacts on our perspective. Research has found that it is easier to embed a negative thought than to embed a neutral or a positive one. We need to work harder cognitively to process information that is not threat-based. We often run on autopilot, which is another shortcut. It means that we can easily predict how to behave and how others are likely to behave towards us by drawing on our memory of what has happened before. The downside, if we are too effective at this strategy, we end up missing out. We skim over information and only see what the brain selects as important, which tends to be negatively biased. As a psychologist and therapist, this is problematic, as if we are prone to being selective and biased, this is not helpful to the people we work with. We learn strategies to consider whether the information might be limited or skewed. This reflective practice helps us find ways of stepping back from our default mindset to gain a broader perspective. For example, in systemic family therapy, we use a team of reflective practitioners who sit in the room listening to the therapy conversation, and then they offer a different perspective enabled by their unique position of being an observer of what's going on rather than caught up in the process, in the dialogue. I've become more aware of the times that I run on auto, when my head is full, when I'm stressed. And this shortcut has become such a default that at times I do not take in the world around me. An example stands out when I was driving home from work. It had been a long day, back-to-back appointments, and the clinic room I was working from had no windows or natural light. It was winter and I was driving home in the dark, and a long time had passed, and I looked up and I saw an exit to the airport and realised that I'd missed my exit off the roundabout and driven for 10 miles before noticing. I was so caught up in thinking, my mind had no room to be present. This was one of those moments where I decided I need to find some balance and I need to learn to practice what I preach. The good news is we can change what has come to be our default mindset. Neuroscience terms neuroplasticity as the brain's ability to change its pathways and connections. Essentially, we can rewire parts of the brain and we can enable more awareness to thoughts and information. We can learn ways to manage stress by being aware of the physiological changes and by practicing strategies that calm our nervous system. Yoga and mindfulness are two practices that have evidence to show the parasympathetic nervous system becomes activated. There are changes in stress hormones, a reduction in adrenaline and cortisol, and the frontal part of our brain becomes more receptive. Mindfulness is a way to retrain the brain to move from autopilot to awareness mode, and it can help us be more responsive of the environment. I'm learning that we cannot just think or sense make our way to greater well-being. We must learn by experiencing, practicing and feeling it, which has led me to train in more intuitive practices like yoga and mindfulness. Yoga teaches us to listen, to tune in to however we are, to become accepting and more compassionate towards ourselves, to let go of any unnecessary thoughts and to just be with whatever shows up on that day. It's not always easy to shift out of our negative bias and our autopilot. It takes practice, and finding time to practice regularly is a challenge when we're busy and we're stressed. And I'll be honest, it's not been easy. This transition for me, though reassuringly, short practices like how we started this talk strengthen our neural pathway when we repeat them. This awareness muscle in the mind becomes stronger. And what has eased my transition to practices which are more about slowing down and tuning in was to connect doing them with something I love, being outside by the sea. It felt natural to me to take yoga practice outside. I trained as a yoga teacher in Costa Rica. I spent 6 weeks immersed in wildlife, in nature, connecting with the elements, drawing on the senses, which just enhanced the whole experience of the practice for me. It took me far away from my own thoughts into the environment. It was perspective changing and it brought me into balance. And I didn't want to lose what I had learned from my time immersed in nature, and to simply come back to teach yoga at a studio and to return to full-time NHS work and drift back into autopilot. So 3 years ago I decided to start an outdoor yoga class at my favourite beach in Cornwall. And this practice has now become an important part of my life and something I value for my own well-being. A community has grown of people that have connected with nature through practicing yoga outdoors, and who have shown up week after week, committed to keep it going through wind, rain, and all of the unpredictable Cornish weather. And being a psychologist, I'm keen to understand what has motivated this behaviour. What quality is it about the experience that leads to the discipline to commit, to set their alarm, make the journey, show up on time and time again? So I asked people who have joined an outdoor class to tell me about their experience, and I got over 100 responses. So I decided to look at this as research. I pulled the data and drew out some themes. People talked about greater well-being, feeling happiness, connected with their emotions, feeling at peace, more calm, a precious bit of outside me time, this self-care. People talked about having a connection to nature, to something universal, more powerful, feeling a belongingness, with this immersive experience that drew on the elements, feeling actively engaged with the environment and motivated by their surroundings. People talked about having increased awareness, this mindfulness aspect, feeling present, grounded, an opportunity to reset, to come back into the moment, to shift the focus from stresses and worries, to come back and be present. People talked about a belongingness, something about this group community, a shared experience, sharing it with like-minded others. They talked about the safety and the reassurance of being with other people. Gratitude was something that came out of this. Feeling appreciative of the surroundings, of nature, feeling lucky to be here, lucky to be in this space. This outdoor yoga practice has taught me that the connection with nature is enhanced by community. When shared with like-minded people who also have an appreciation of nature, it amplifies and it strengthens that sense of belonging. And if we consider the neurophysiology, the sense of belongingness and the safety of the group combined with the yoga and the mindfulness practice leads to the calming of the central nervous system. There is a chemical change in our bodies and oxytocin is released, which is the hormone that promotes love and bonding, enabling us to feel a sense of deeper connection with each other and with the environment. To have a felt sense that we are all one with nature, and that is what yoga means, unity. What has this told me about the behaviour, the discipline, the dedication to a focused practice? Well, when you feel the benefit and then you repeat the behaviour, it strengthens the neural pathways for that connection in the brain. We are more likely to want to repeat it and to want to encourage others to do the same. The group has certainly motivated me to want to keep it going, even in the wind and in the rain. So what came out of a personal pursuit of me looking for ways to switch out of auto has evolved into something that has made me feel so much more appreciative of my environment. And I've noticed that people want to look after and protect the environment that they appreciate. I've seen people picking up litter on the way to the yoga class, no words spoken, just putting it in their pocket or bag, as if it's intuitive. And this makes sense. We protect what we love. What I've learned is if we can feel a deeper connection with our surroundings, whether that's through yoga or surfing or simply spending time outside, and do that with like-minded others, this increases a sense of belonging and an appreciation of our environment. We are more likely to treat it with care and respect and want to protect it. I hope this talk has made you think about the time you spend outside, and maybe it will inspire you to slow down, listen and tune in. Thank you.